This is honey. 50% of this honey is fructose. And every time you eat either sucrose or you eat honey, you're going to get 50% fructose. And guess what? Hi friends, I'm sure you heard that if you quit sugar, you will lose weight. But you've tried it and it didn't work. So there's more to this than meets the eye. Otherwise, people on sugar substitutes should all be skinny. And we know that doesn't happen. The problem is threefold. Number one, sugar is hidden in more than just sweet food. Number two, your metabolism is just not the same, which leads to number three. Not all sugars are equal. All of these foods on this table have some kind of sugar. Many of these foods are addictive. However, there are two kinds of foods on this table that are part of the secret to giving up sugar for good. This was once considered to be white gold. It's actually a twofer, like those Disneyland Hopper passes. You're literally getting two unique sugar molecules for one molecule. This is a sugar sucrose, but in sucrose is glucose and fructose, and they are metabolized in two separate unique ways, and therefore they are not equal. But they are sold to you as a fixed combination, sucrose or table sugar. Now, I'm sure you have some in your pantry. And within this chemical, sucrose, these two simple sugars, well, one of these sugars is a key to life and is actually a nutrient, but the second is a toxin that is causing our nation's crisis of diabetes, obesity, dementia, and cancer. And the day you walk into Costco, Trader Joe's, or pass a table with sweet foods made from this ingredient, sucrose, white gold, and not even care, is a day you have quit sugar for good. And that's the freedom we all need to strive for to get our health back. And this is how you're going to get there. So let's look at these foods on this table. Sugar is in plain sight, like in this candy bag. And then you have sugar conveniently hidden. Everything on this table has some kind of sugar. Some of it is added and some of it is all natural. Guess which food has the most hidden added sugars? And being aware of the added sugars in your food is the first step to quitting sugar. Added sugar is not metabolized the same as food in their natural matrix that just so happens to have a little sugar. And this is why eating whole fruit like this tomato is not the same as eating ketchup, an engineered food. So let's see how much added sugar is in each of these foods. Let's start with a candy bar. I'm going to grab one. Okay, so this candy bar is a caramel bar and it has 7 grams of added sugar. So I have some cups here. So we're going to center that and then I'm going to pour some sugar in it. And then let's see how much 7 grams of sugar is worth. I'm going to show you that this is 0. You see that? 0 on the balance. That's 8 grams. So that is 8 grams of sugar. Let me take some of it out. Okay, 6 grams. Went down to 6 grams and see. Is it going to go up to 7? Oh, that's 8. Okay, so that's roughly close enough. Very sensitive balance here. I took a little bit out. Maybe it doesn't go to 7. It goes to 6. I'll just count that as 7. All right, so let's see how much 7 grams is. I have here a tablespoon and a teaspoon, okay? So I'm going to pour it in to see how much 7 grams in. This is a teaspoon of sugar. So 7 grams is roughly, I think it's a little bit over a teaspoon. It's probably like a teaspoon and a quarter is 7 grams worth of sugar. So every time you eat this candy bar, you're eating over a teaspoon of sugar. And that's just one little candy bar. Okay, so this is 7 grams of sugar here. All right, take a look at this. This is a almond candy-like thing, okay? And you see that it has 5 grams of added sugar. So roughly, every time you eat a serving is a quarter of a cup. You're going to eat 5 grams of added sugar. Okay, so I have here a quarter of a cup. This is roughly a quarter of a cup. So every time you eat a quarter of a cup of this holiday almond blend, you're eating 7 grams of sugar. So if you ate just a candy bar and this almond blend, you would be eating double this. So 14 grams of sugar right there, right? And this is added sugar. Let me compare that to almonds. This is raw almonds. Raw almonds also has sugar, but it doesn't have any added sugar. You see that? It has 1 gram total of sugar, no added sugars. The reason why you metabolize this differently is because you don't have the added sugar, even though there's sugar in it. You know how hard an almond is? Like, look at this. Look how hard it is, right? You can't break it when you just tap it. Okay, so it takes time for you to metabolize this, as opposed to this. You mix this with water, it's going to just totally dissolve. The faster it dissolves, the easier it is for you to spike your blood sugars as well as your insulin. Orange slices. This is so pretty, right? Okay, you see that? It's beautiful. Okay, the problem is the back of the ingredients. Okay, so this is all natural. It looks all fancy and pretty to look at. I don't know what it tastes like. I don't buy this kind of stuff because it has total sugar is 32 grams and 13 grams of added sugar. Let's make 13 grams of added sugar so you know how much is in these orange slices. Okay, that's 14 grams. That's roughly close. Okay, so this, I'll show you, is roughly 14 grams. Pretty close, right? This is how much sugar you're eating every time you're eating those orange slices, right? And how many slices is that? 3.5 servings per container. This container has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can eat probably 2 of these, right? 2.5 or maybe 3, and then you're going to be eating 14 grams of sugar. So right there, if you ate those nuts and then you ate this is like already over 30 grams of sugar, 28 grams, almost 30 grams of sugar. So I have here like this granola bar medley. Okay, 2/3 of a cup is 9 grams of added sugar. So every time you eat this, you're going to eat some of this, and that just adds up, right? So you're eating more added sugar, right? What's that? 14 plus 9, that's 23 grams, plus the other candy bar, and then the almonds, right? That's another 14 grams. So right there, we're adding that up to, right, like nearly 40 grams of sugar. So let's see this. Honey, 1 tablespoon is 17 grams of sugar. So 17 grams of sugar. This is 12 grams. Let's see. This is 16 grams. That's pretty close. Okay. Every time you eat 1 tablespoon, you're eating 17 grams of sugar. And remember, 50% of this is fructose, just like 50% of table sugar, right? So I want to see if 17 grams of sugar is 1 tablespoon. So we're going to pour this here, right? Okay. This is more than a tablespoon, okay, of sucrose, right? It won't go flat. It's like a heaping tablespoon. 17 grams of sugar is a heaping tablespoon of sucrose. So that when you're eating honey, a tablespoon, you're eating 17 grams of purified sugar. That's just a lot of sugar when you put these two things side by side. So I'm not sure why people think honey is good for them. It's just added sugar. Now, let's go take a look at the sauce. This is a Japanese sauce of some sort. It says here, 7 grams of added sugar. So about the same as the almonds, about the same as the candy bar or the chocolate bar. So if you put a tablespoon of this, which is still less sugar than this, but it's still added sugar that you have to add up to your total daily tally. We're supposed to eat less than 9 teaspoons. 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. So far, we know that 17 grams exceeds a tablespoon. And we've had now 17 plus like the almonds we just looked at, the oats, the granola we just looked at, the marinade we just looked at. I mean, this is all added sugar. See how easily this all adds up? Okay, so let's look at this very popular teriyaki sauce, okay? This has 9 grams of added sugar. So it's similar to this. And when you add these two together, 9 plus 7 is 16. So it's roughly this amount of added sugar per 2 tablespoons, right? And the serving size is a tablespoon. So 2 tablespoons is roughly this amount of sugar. Who eats just 2 tablespoons in their food? It's very hard to. People are eating multiple tablespoons. You see how easily all your sugar will ultimately add up? Oh, one more thing. I have this bread here that has added sugar too, right? Right there. It has 2 grams of added sugar. It's not as much, but it still has added sugar to contribute to your total daily intake. 9 teaspoons is 36 grams of sugar. Just eating this little bit of food has already exceeded my grams of sugar for a day. Sugar is a hidden secret that no processed food company wants you to understand. The way they use all natural is really not natural at all. If you have a garden and you have some fruit trees, I'm sure you have rats, opossums, and birds that are thoroughly enjoying the fruits of your labor. Now, do you see them ever adding sugar to those fruits? Do you see monkeys ever drying fruits, processing out the sugar, and then adding that sugar back to foods to make things like this orange candy? No, this is a people thing to do. And some people have a higher preference of sugar than others. That is called the sugar bliss point. You have a sugar bliss point that manipulates your brain to seek sugar in everything you eat, even if it doesn't taste sweet. The sugar bliss point is the optimal level of sweetness that creates the most pleasurable taste experience. This can only happen with engineered foods. Have you ever daydreamed about eating a whole apple? Maybe salivating as you think of the taste and texture of biting into an apple. And maybe you're thinking about the apple in your lunch bag or dreaming about apples. No, the only people who have that kind of relationship with apples are the apple farmers hoping to have a good harvest so that they can make a living to support their family. But I'm sure you salivated over pies, muffins, candy, ice cream, or some other engineered foods that defines nature. And growing both chasing after these engineered chemicals. Hey, that was my lifestyle too. In junior high, I learned how to bake banana bread. And back then, public schools, they taught home economics, and that was my introduction to baking. Somehow they thought that baking was a helpful tool for survival. Now, I think cooking is, but I didn't learn how to cook. I just learned how to bake. And I loved it.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
I was so surprised that banana bread could taste so good. It was basically sugar with refined flour with butter, and then you put a little banana. Now, how could that not taste good? Nothing in it was all natural except for the banana. And by eating that banana bread, it totally changed my brain chemistry, and I was hooked. I thought about that banana bread on my walk home. I daydreamed about what other ingredients and combinations that I could put together to take the place of the banana to get that same texture with a different flavor. So I went home and I literally baked maybe 200 experimental muffins that same night. From cinnamon apple muffins to lemon to chocolate chip muffins, vanilla, etc. And my parents, they couldn't believe their eyes when they got home because our wood dining table was piled high in muffins. I have to say that that was the worst class I've ever taken in my life. It started a journey of over a decade of home baking that destroyed my metabolism. And I probably spent thousands of dollars chasing after desserts, pastries, and sweet drinks like boba milk teas that cost $6 for like basically water and sugar. Of course, that was spread out over a decade. And I would have done better if I had put that money in the stock market. I was in fact addicted to not only the taste of engineered foods, but also the excitement of manipulating chemicals. And I was fooled that they were safe and edible. But, you know, deep inside, I always knew something was wrong because every time I ate baked items, I would get more tartar on my teeth, more cavities, and I would gain weight, but not gaining weight everywhere. The weight would go directly to my waistline. And I can tell almost immediately, like the day after eating, that my pants would get too tight. And I would just pretend I was bloated. And some of it was probably bloating, but I knew most of it was just gaining weight. I was growing a belly, and I'm sure it wasn't muscle. So to maintain my weight and to be able to pull up my pants, I would skip eating other nutritious foods. Now, I was basically cutting calories in other places. Now, back then, most people were skinny. They weren't actually skinny. They were just normal in size. And I was the largest kid in my class. And I was ashamed and embarrassed of my size, so I always wore a pink jacket because I wanted to cover myself up. But don't feel sorry for me. I didn't suffer any consequences from that. But sadly, if you saw me today, you wouldn't even think twice because I would be considered normal in size because everybody else is heavier. Now, I have friends who literally don't realize they are obese. And people have made obesity into an image problem. But obesity is a metabolism problem, and it is an unhealthy state to be in. So why are people getting larger and storing more fat? Have our genes or DNA changed? Probably not. But you don't have to literally change your DNA or genes to change your gene expression. You have a lot of genes that actually don't get expressed unless something triggers it. And we know that there are chemicals that trigger obesity. They are known as obesogens, like BPA in the plastic lining of many cans. However, even if you're exposed to obesogens, you can't get obese without eating extra calories and elevating the hormone insulin. Now, the higher your insulin, the more weight you will gain. And we all know eating sugar stimulates insulin. But it's not just any sugar. We actually think about glucose, but many other sugars actually can increase insulin. However, what people don't realize is that other nutrients also stimulate insulin and promote more insulin resistance, including amino acids and protein, fatty acids, and ketone bodies. Now, various hormones can also elevate insulin secretions, such as glucagon peptide 1, glucagon, epinephrine, cortisol, gastric inhibitory peptide, as well as stimulating your parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system and some medications. The thing is, insulin is a fat storage hormone. When you have high insulin, that tells your body to store more fat to gain weight, to prepare for the winter like bears. So if you want to lose weight, your insulin has to go down. And this is why the relationship between insulin and sugar is so complex, because there's so many factors that can elevate your insulin. Take fructose, for example. This is honey. 50% of this honey is fructose. And every time you eat either white gold and sucrose or you eat honey, you're going to get 50% fructose. And guess what? Fructose is even worse for your metabolism, even though it doesn't directly get measured as a sugar spike on your blood sugar meter, because your blood sugar meter only measures glucose. And when you eat sucrose, which is half glucose, half fructose, or when you eat honey, which is half fructose, only the glucose directly elevates your insulin soon after eating that table sugar or honey. But it's the silent fructose that is making you sick faster. And this is because fructose is a toxin when purified out from its natural matrix and eaten in excess. In nature, high fructose corn syrup doesn't exist. That's a man-made product. Honey exists because it's a bee-made product. However, fructose is found all over nature, and most plants have some form of fructose. There is some form of fructose in tomatoes or in your apple. But when you eat fructose in the whole food form, you get so little fructose because when you eat this tomato, it's trapped in fiber and water. And if you eat this fresh, not mixed up with added sugar, this is so diluted. About 5 grams of fructose is actually metabolized by your gut microbiome. And the problem is when you concentrate it, when you turn this tomato into ketchup, or apples into apple juice, or you're adding that white gold into soda, or you eat a cookie, you are eating an unnatural amount that was purified out and concentrated. Now, the mixture dissolves together, which means it can be taken apart very easily after you swallow it. Now, bees need this kind of quick energy source because you know how much a bee flies in a day? It flies something like 40 miles a day. So sure, this is found in nature, but it's not a natural product. It's for an insect, a honeybee. It's a way for them to store food in the winter. And honeybees are active all year round. Honey is a great energy source. So if you want to run miles like a honeybee, sure, this is a great source to get quick, easily digestible energy. Now, bees spend 5 hours a day covering, like I said, about 40 miles. So they're living the super Olympic athlete lifestyle every single day. The average person walks, roughly 3,000 steps? There's no comparison. You don't need to eat easily digestible, sugary foods, whether you're getting it in table sugar or you're eating honey. Because when you're not physically active, what does that sugar do? It just hangs out and stimulates your insulin, and then that sugar gets packed on as fat. So if you're going to eat sugar, you have to be physically active to not gain weight and not to change your gene expression. You have to use up this fuel as soon as you eat it. And when that sugar hangs out, the excess gets stored as fat. But this stuff, have you ever spilled some of it? It's super viscous and sticky. It's going to coat your proteins, your fat cells, your immune cells, your hormones. It changes how your cell communicates with one another. It changes your immune system. This is what causes rapid acceleration of aging, whether you're getting it from honey or that white gold table sugar. Remember, table sugar doesn't exist in nature. And did you know that the average American, they eat 70 pounds of table sugar a year? And you literally are what you eat. And sure, sucrose is found naturally in plants like this tomato or beets or even sugar cane. Have you ever eaten a sugar cane? It's not something that takes you 1 minute to swallow like juice or soda. My parents used to grow sugar canes in our backyard, and occasionally they would chop a segment off to let me gnaw on it. I would gnaw on it for maybe, it seemed like 5 minutes. It was probably less, and I would give up because I realized I wasn't getting anywhere. It was so hard to chew because I'm not a panda, nor do I digest wood like a termite. The sugar in sugar cane is worthless because it's trapped in that sugar matrix. But you can press it and purify that out. Can you believe that nations have fought wars over this white gold? 80% of the world's sugar is made from sugar cane. That's 1.9 billion tons of sugarcane grown worldwide to make approximately 200 million tons of sugar for people to have in their homes and eat. Have you ever eaten beets? Some people can't stand the taste of natural beets, even though it's full of sugar. Beets have an earthy taste because it's literally a root, but people have figured out that they can also purify sugar from beets, which is responsible for 20% of the world's sugar. So 30 million tons of sugar beets produce about 40 million tons of sucrose. So when you see the label cane sugar or beet sugar, there's no difference. You can chemically synthesize this sucrose and you will get the same glucose and fructose in the lab that will have the same metabolic effect as that pure cane sugar or that pure beet sugar. Those are not natural at all. There's no such thing as a natural purified sugar because in nature, pure sugars, they don't exist by themselves. They're always wrapped in a food matrix. And this is a marketing ploy that the food industry has played on all of us. They put these labels to get you to feel better about eating their food engineering product so that you can get addicted to sugar. But the reality is growing sugar canes or beets, that's expensive. So government subsidies, they really help farmers, right? Hence, this is why corn was used to make high fructose corn syrup. The American government actually subsidizes farmers to grow corn. The production of corn is so much cheaper than producing sugar from sugarcane or beets. It's also harder to grow sugarcane because you need a tropical region to grow it. And in America, that's pretty limited. But the Midwest is perfect to grow tons of corn. But unlike sucrose, which is known as white gold, high fructose corn syrup, that's fool's gold. A liquid sweetener which fools the mind to taste the sweetness, but you get less product and you get a different metabolism. And this is because fructose is sweeter than glucose. So increasing fructose can enhance the sweetness without adding volume. But your body doesn't metabolize fructose the same. Unlike glucose, where every cell in the body can use glucose as fuel, fructose can only be metabolized by your liver. In fact, you have certain cells that can only use glucose as fuel. And that's hence the problem. The burden to remove fructose is solely by your liver, which ultimately converts fructose into fat. And that fat, unfortunately, gets trapped in the liver, causing fatty liver. Fructose promotes fat production, and chronic excess fructose consumption will lead to fat buildup in liver cells, causing metabolic associated steatotic liver disease, formerly called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is the beginning of insulin resistance, which then leads ultimately to obesity and type 2 diabetes. Oh, did I mention the elevated triglycerides and uric acid? Now, is it worth eating food that can cause all these bad side effects? They don't happen overnight. They take years to occur. And this is why not all sugars are the same. So why can't we just stop eating sweet foods? Well, it's probably because your favorite foods have hit your sugar bliss point. American desserts are much sweeter than European or Asian desserts because Americans have a higher sugar bliss point. And that was created by fructose. Foods that don't hit that bliss point are either not sweet enough or too sweet, neither of which will sell more product. So finding that bliss point is a key to food engineering to trigger the perfect dopamine response so that it can make your brain chase more sugar on repeat to buy more of their food. And this is a recipe to create addiction. And it's not just desserts that's a problem. Savory foods oftentimes have more sugar. Take this teriyaki sauce. It has 9 grams of added sugar. Now, whether it's teriyaki sauce, ketchup, or salad dressings, that all has the same metabolic effect. And unfortunately, the damage isn't just with your metabolism. You also then train your gut microbiota to efficiently process the sugars. And when your gut microbiota is more efficient, then you will see sugar spikes higher in your bloodstream that causes downstream metabolic effects. Now, if you notice, people who lose their taste, like when they get sick, you simply start eating less, right? You lose weight because you don't have an appetite. And some people, when they get sick, they lose their sense of smell, which also contributes to the lack of appetite because a lot of what makes food pleasurable is also in smell. And when it comes to taste, most of us only think about our tongue, but you actually have 2 different body parts that help you taste sugar. Your tongue is very important to taste sugar. Before a modern food world, the ancient cavemen, they had to make sure things weren't poisonous, which are usually in sour and bitter. So the tongue was very helpful for our ancestors to forage in the forest. When sugar stimulates taste receptors, that triggers dopamine from the brain. And dopamine is responsible for your drive. So you will seek more of that food if it tastes sweet. And after you swallow, there are taste receptors in your intestine that then releases a second shot of dopamine. And like I said, your body is hardwired to seek sugar. So a low serum insulin is a key to losing weight and getting off sugar. Now, how do you get a low insulin? There are several ways to do it. Number one, you can simply just quit cold turkey all these foods and not eat anything with carbohydrates. And that, unfortunately, has been proven to be unsuccessful to sustain for most people because that's just very hard to do. You'll get nutrient deficient, so you'll have to take supplements, and it turns out not to be a longevity diet. Or number two, you can just eat less of whatever you're eating. That also turns out to be a failed dietary pattern. Now, whether you're doing that with smaller plates or calorie counting, you'll basically just end up giving up because you'll end up hungry. It's like restricting alcohol from an alcoholic. Does that ever work? Or number three, you change how you consume that sugar and avoid engineered food and increase all natural whole foods rich in carbohydrates, even if it has simple sugars. But what you want to avoid is the added sugar. And when you're aware of the hidden sugars and start reading labels and avoid that added sugar, especially added sugar with fructose, then that's when you change your taste palette. And when you change your taste palette, you eat different foods. When you eat different foods, you have a different metabolism, a different gene expression, different hormones that then regulate and improve your mood. And that then drives you to choose more foods that are healthier. And that's when you liberate yourself from the food industry's deceptive engineering tactics. But some people think that they can outsmart nature and eat sugar substitutes. Well, not all sugar substitutes are the same. If you want to learn more about that, watch the next video.